Are you ready? The Cornelia Stephanie Show. Wake up to love, your call to action. Join Cornelia as she empowers others to live heaven on earth. Cornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cornelia Stephanie Show. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. I have a wonderful guest for you because we're going to be talking about what the mainstream medicine media isn't telling you about health solutions that are available to us. And so Christine is here. It is Christine Padovan, and she is a toxicity expert and detox coach. She's been interviewed by Fox News, Talk Radio, KTRS, WBAP Dallas, NTD News, Canada TV, Montreal, ABC, Sirius XM, the Rick Valdez Show, and other news stations across America, and now on the Cornelia Stephanie Show. So, Christine, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Cornelia. It's great to be here again.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you. I know that we set this time aside so we can dive deeper. We brought you on the Stories of Hope series, and we had you there where you were introducing your work, but you've been you've been on many media outlets talking about this level of work. So let's talk a little bit about what you're passionate about, your passion, and how this all started for you.
Well, what's interesting is this actually started for me as actually a young child. I was one of those kids that was always jumping, running, doing some sort of activity where we were hyperactive, me and my siblings, and it kind of runs in the family. And what was interesting about having all that energy is the nutrition part of it, which kind of fuels how your body grows and how your body reacts. And noticing how a cause and effect, if you will, happens, like going to a school Christmas party, right? And having access to all this candy. And then you're eating all this candy. And then all of a sudden, it's a bunch of hours later, and there you are in bed with a terrible stomach ache that then turns into like a flu. And you're saying to yourself, boy, I'm not going to do that again, right? And so I started noticing that, what you eat, how that reacts to your body, and what does your body do in response to that? And that was very key to me. So I actually started reading voraciously, because that's another thing that I love to do was read. And I started reading a Reader's Digest article. I was 12 years old, and it had to do with how did certain nations, like African nations or nations like China, not have people get fat when they got older. And it was talking about the kind of diet, the kinds of foods that they would eat. And it talked about whole grain foods and more fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. And unfortunately, at that time, my mom would buy us Yodels and Twinkies and all sorts of stuff, even though we burned it. I mean, we were just burning away the calories. All that extra sugar wasn't doing us any favors either. It was actually making us even more hyperactive, I would say, right? And then from that day on, this is an Italian family, by the way, where rolls and bread are very traditional with pretty much every meal. And I refused, driving my parents crazy, refused to eat the bread because it wasn't whole grain. And they're thinking, well, where is she getting this? And so I just started that journey at a very young age, and just brought that through the rest of my life, seeing how the association with nutrition and fitness and everything else correlates to mental health, physical health, and how do you stay healthy?
Yeah, so it starts at a young age. I saw lots of movie scenes play out in my uh, childhood when you were speaking about various different things of what happened when I was a child and how that
Mhm.
has affected me my whole life, even uh, the um, the struggle of dealing with weight has been for my whole life, if you will.
Mhm.
So it's a really important piece that we need to, talk about so that the women, the families, the parents that are out there now that are raising children, that they are aware of this and that they can make the changes they need to make so that we don't create another generation like us who was affected by this at a younger age, and we really didn't know. But you said you were already reading articles back then because on a soul level you were already geared up for uh, you know teaching this stuff one day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I was there telling my parents when my father started getting bursitis in his shoulder, years of construction work, right? And I was telling him, I said, that is because you are lacking calcium. Okay, so what your body is doing, it's leaching calcium from other parts of your body, and it's building up that calcium deposit there because your body is craving calcium. And he was going to some doctor, local, small town doctor, that said, no, 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 now you have too much calcium. We need to like siphon it out, and causing so much other pain. And it's very hard, parents, it's hard for parents when they have kids who are very knowledgeable and they're studying and they're researching. It's hard for a parent who's going to listen to, say, this 14-year-old kid tell him that he's missing, extra calcium because of how hard he's working, how much he's expending at his job, versus a doctor. And that's when I started, yeah, I was starting to see that not every doctor knows everything.
A lot of
And how,
a lot of
right,
doctors
how
don't.
much information is out there that we can actually be learning ourselves to address certain issues.
So you're talking about, what you were just talking about right now with the calcium. So, which brought up something that I'm curious about right now. I don't have any issues. I don't take any medications for anything. And, but something I do have that I would like to take care of, and maybe you know the answer to that. Not that you're a medical doctor or not that you're giving medical advice. I'm personally asking you. So my fingernails are really, really soft and brittle.
That's also gelatin. There's also collagen and gelatin that actually help to strengthen our nails that you need more of. I don't know if you remember this, Cornelia, but years ago there was actually commercials about how to strengthen our nails, and they were selling in the store those Knowles gelatin packets. And my mother had like boxes of that because also it was like used in cooking.
Yeah.
All right,
Mhm.
to add more of that into the meal. So it's not only calcium, there's extra zinc and gelatin that help to strengthen our nails. I don't know if you've also been seeing how Sally Hansen has those like improved vitamin and gelatin to give more of that element back into our nails to keep
Yeah,
them from being brittle.
yeah,
But it's
that's
also stress
mm,
causes that. I don't know if you noticed that because, of course, you have a huge podcast show and you've got a lot of responsibility. So stress has a lot to do with that too. So like reducing your stress and also not having as much acidic drinks like coffee. That also starts to leach and make our bones and our nails a bit brittle too. So making our diet a little bit more alkaline too is very helpful.
okay. That's good because I am a coffee drinker. And yeah, stress. I can't imagine anyone in this evolutionary time on Earth with all the change that we're facing as a humanity, as a society that is not under stress. I just can't imagine. It's just like, even when I wrote my book on, peace is the flip side of anger, and how
Hmm.
when people would say, oh, I don't have any anger, but my son does, or my dad does, or my friend does, not me. It just really cracks me up because I can't even imagine anyone on this planet right now that doesn't get the opportunity to get angered get angered about something that's going on and something that is happening. So it's the same kind of thing. It's giving us the opportunity. Stress is giving us the opportunity to again look at what we can change in our lives to bring our body into more harmony, into more peace, into more uh, you know equilibrium and health. And that's what
Right.
you're here to talk about today.
Right. Equity and equilibrium with our bodies and our health. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you were mentioning that, Cornelia, because the current events and you know what's interesting, it's Billy Joel had that great song a bunch of years ago, we didn't start the fire, right? And because one young teenager had approached him, okay, regarding, oh, you know you guys had it so easy when you were younger. And, because trying to make out that today's like such chaos. So Billy Joel wrote the song, We Didn't Start the Fire. And he was trying to show each decade from the time that he was born or even before that, how much conflict that there's been in the world at any time. But it always seems more poignant in the current time. And what I also try to teach people, because I learned this from my mom, and you probably know this too, Cornelia, from growing up, is that we would have the evening news turned on, right, during dinner time, and this is nothing new. It really isn't. I mean, mainstream media may have become more opinionated, I would say, instead of being objective reporting, more so than it was years ago. But even so, news programs are geared to giving you bad news, right? It's not something that's happy, right? For anything, right? And my mother would get upset. I mean, even just hearing local news about a fire, harming a family, someone having an accident, getting killed. And she's very sensitive. I would say she's almost empathic because she would get, she'd get so upset that, hearing all this news. And here I am, I'm a kid. I'm saying, don't watch the news. Because I said, I'm observing it. And I have a degree in psychology, Cornelia. I don't know if anybody knows that. I started even some master's graduate work years ago and during my internship with counseling years and years ago. And here I am, a kid, like not even learned in that way yet, but I'm observing objectively when I'm looking at the news. I don't like to hear that someone's died, but I'm also trying to keep as much light and positivity, knowing that every day when I meet somebody, who's either, we talk about race conflict or something like that, there's nothing of that. We would integrate and talk to other people, all these other things. And if someone had like a tragedy, everybody rallies around, everybody lifts each other up. And I would just say to her, don't watch the news, because they said we can only put our thoughts out to make the situation better and do what we can every day in our own lives to make things better. But hearing about like an earthquake or something that you technically can't control, but we can do something to help a situation or make it better so that we can be less stress. I think there's a way, the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu years ago talked about how in every situation, whether, instead of getting angry at it, saying, okay, what is this teaching us and what can we do to stay in that level of joy and make that situation and make things better?
Well, one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Peace, the Flip Side to Anger, is because how, when we as a humanity don't know what to do with our anger, yet we
Mhm.
hold it inside the physical body. And anger inside the physical body is like a hot coal that is burning up on the inside of our organs or something inside of our body. That's harming ourselves. When we
Mhm.
get the anger out of our body, but we don't use it positively, we'll use our fist to harm someone, we'll use our words to harm someone, or we'll pick up a gun and harm someone. And that is also a reason why I wrote that book, Peace, the Flip Side to Anger, that is available on Amazon, to
Mhm.
show people getting the anger out of the body is an important piece, because underneath the anger, there is always, 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 always a truth that is waiting to be claimed by you, but only after you get the anger out. So finding an outlet of releasing anger out of your body, because it's a raw human emotion that is there, that we all have. It's not
Mhm.
wrong or bad to get angry. It's just what we do with that anger that can then do harm. It's not good to hold
Oh,
it in the body. That's the point, right?
absolutely, absolutely. My dad, who was a very, very brilliant person, and I've but he could get angry at the littlest thing, and I'm sure people like that. I've met other people like that through the years, and the anger was so destructive. It
Mhm.
was destructive to, not wanting to stay with that person. Anger is just very, very, very destructive, not only physically for that person, to the other people around them.
Yeah.
And it is also very key, that people who are going to see something or react to something and then get angry, that's not helping them either at all.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
that's the idea.
getting it out in a healthy way,
Yeah.
like in discussions. We'd had family discussions around the table about, say, a news event. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of creative ways and healthy ways to get that anger out.
And it's our responsibility, because it's our feelings, it's our anger. So the world is going to do what the world is going to do, but how are we going to respond to what the world is going to do, which is also another big piece. uh,
Right.
we're here to talk now again, but the anger, it's also part of our health and well-being, because that anger also causes harm inside your body, which
Hmm.
isn't creating wellness if you don't take care of it, which is another part of our health and well-being. But how do we stay healthy without a doctor's intervention today?
The easiest way and the best way to stay healthy without a doctor's intervention is, because most doctors don't do this, is more for self-testing. If your doctor, or you can do this with, say, a local doctor if you wish. if you can get all your vital stats in terms of what are the levels of all the elements in your body, what's the level of sodium, potassium, calcium, all the elements that you need, especially vitamin D. And I don't know if, Cornelia, you've had anybody talk about this on your show. The recent studies over the years in terms of how you keep viruses away, how you even can keep cancer away. I have a great interview I did with a colleague, Barbara Walsh, on my Rumble channel, done a year ago, how she cured her cancer without chemo, without radiation, without medication, without surgery. And the big key for her, because the first test that that this naturopathic center did for her, Hoxie Biomedical, they test your vitamin D level.
Oh,
Her vitamin D level was non-existent. She said it's like it barely registered. And she also is someone who deals with a lot of stress, didn't pay attention. She said she ate horribly for over 20 years. No, she practically had no vitamin D in her body, and she had
wow.
stage one breast cancer. And so not only did I figure this out too in the last few years before, COVID hit and everything else, how vital vitamin D is in keeping our immune system strong, but it is also a way to keep cancer away.
Wow,
So
that's
if
so
people
huge.
actually tested their vitamin D and all their elemental levels in their body and made sure that they were taking the supplements that our foods aren't giving us to maintain that. And the other big factor is not only the vitamin D, but an element that's in every cell of not only in human bodies, but even animals. And they've even found it in some plant life. It's glutathione. And we don't make that. As we get older, we start to slow down making that, just like with collagen in our skin. If we kept up those two elements, the vitamin D levels at optimal levels and glutathione in our bodies, and along with vitamin C, because our body doesn't make the vitamin C either, with those at least, 3 elements, we would have, I would say, more than 90%, if not more, of allergies and illnesses that we see out there would not exist.
Where do we get the tests?
Oh, that's very easy. There is a company called directlabs.com, and I provide links with that, on my websites, and we can provide them here as well. Direct Labs has all of these mail-in test kits for the public that can test your and basically any element. I mean, basically, you've got vitamin D tests, you have hormone testing for men and women to see what your estrogen and testosterone levels are, because that can, for stress or anything else, can also get out of whack. We've got the forensic testing to see what is the level of toxicity of metals or chemicals in your body. Allergy testing. And actually, well, that's another big thing, Cornelia. Toxins cause artificial allergies in the body that most people aren't aware of. We get allergic to gluten, dairy, wheat, especially. When I had heavy metal toxicity, those were the 3 main items that I couldn't eat for a while until I, got all the toxins out of me and could go back to eating those. So those are very key. It's very easy. I mean, I don't go to the doctor. I don't see the doctor. I mean, I've gone to sports doctors for pulling muscles and injuring myself because I'm such a jumping bean. But really, in terms of, I don't get ill because I'm keeping my arteries clean and my bones strong and everything else with the amount of supplements that I take every day. And yeah, I always encourage people to do that, because you basically, it's much easier than people think in being your own doctor. What's interesting, Cornelia, I was just reading some statistics that should also encourage people to be their own doctor, because we actually have a doctor's shortage. We have actually the majority of doctors are going to be turning 65 or older. We've got more doctors retiring. I have a stat that by 2033, we're going to have a shortage of 133,000 doctors in the US alone.
That's really,
And
that's
it,
extraordinary.
it's
I
very significant. It's very
it,
significant. So
yeah, and
that's, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say what it really does show, as we are claiming our power back, our authority back from when your mother, my father, everyone had given their authority to the doctors, as we're claiming that back now and becoming our natural healers. This is also changing on that level as well, because as we're stepping more into, like you said, you don't go to a doctor. Well, if we have more people like you and me, then why do we need them, right? In that sense, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have them. I'm just saying, because on a natural level of how we're progressing, more and more people are going to be going, as you said in your show notes, are going to go more into holistic health and holistic healing and natural wellness.
Yeah, no, we're going back to what we learned centuries, eons ago, is that everything that we needed for healing came from Mother Nature. I mean, our whole planet is teeming with natural cures. I mean, just the example I briefly gave from Hoxsey Biomedical. Hoxsey is the name of the family that discovered this, amazing cancer cure over 100. It's more than that. But he brought it to the public in 1924, which is just exactly 100 years ago. And they were curing cancer left and right, all forms of cancer in the US, and had people coming from all over the world. And doctors are getting upset because that's taking away from radiation, because then chemo, radiation therapy, again, the money thing. But these were plants and herbs and things like that were discovered so many years ago by Native Americans and used for centuries. And it's just very interesting how, when allopathic medicine, and if people don't know what that means, allopathic is more for man-made medicine in terms of trying to control a symptom or create a cure. And pretty much nothing, I don't really know of any man-made medicine that's really provided a cure for anything as much as just controlling a symptom.
I think what we need,
And
not so much is, like when you said we're going to be in shortage of doctors in 20, what did you say, in 2030,
2030,
2033?
by 2033, we already have the shortage. It's just going to increase even more
I think
exponentially in another 9 years. Yeah.
what we need, so though, for those people that want to go to medical school, is we need surgeons. That would be a place where people can really, possibly still advance their careers in surgery, just because I'm looking at this myself right now for my father, who is going to be going in to have a procedure done. And I don't know what he would do without that procedure.
Is it a procedure for a torn
Heart,
muscle or a
no, it's, yeah,
tumor?
well, heart is a muscle, but he's having some stents put in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he is 90. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, I'm just saying. So I think, those are, those are the areas where people are still needing support in that way. But I think we are showing a vast change and improvement for how many of us are stepping more into our true self-healing abilities. Because if you believe and know that the body has the ability to self-regenerate and self-heal, and that once you put your body in the right environment and give it the right supplements, like you said, then
Mhm.
we're taking care of ourselves in a much better way than how we were born and raised.
Right, and then you won't need then, when I turn 90 or 100, we won't need stents to open a clogged artery and things like that. There will be maybe the need for an occasional surgeon or having somebody who is skilled with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to I don't disagree with that, right? But I foresee that more people, if people are going to go into a health practice field, such as um, being a trained medical physician or medical assistant or nurse practitioner, someone in that field, I would like to see, and I think there's a huge need for it, especially with my own poisoning incident and what I'm seeing with toxicity from, vaccines such as COVID shots and the new mRNA flu shots and wildfire smoke, chemical fires, anything out there that can create toxins in the air, the water, or the ground, right? Or in our bodies, right? More training in toxicology about chronic toxicity, because it seems to me from all the instances that I'm seeing, even from relatives of mine, um, uncle and aunt that owned a paint shop in Italy for years, perfectly healthy, and then they were breathing in all these paint fumes for so many years, and then having neuropathy and Alzheimer's and all sorts of muscle issues, so many different issues that could have been prevented if they were keeping those toxins out of their body actively. So I think toxicology is so key. We've talked about this. I've talked about it with some other dietitians, like who are into nutrition, who are trained dietitians, who have arguments with doctors in the hospital of what a patient should be eating who just had a heart attack,
Right.
who has all these clogged arteries, and
Yeah.
they know what the person should be eating to be getting better. And the doctor, maybe she was saying to me, I was thinking they might have one seminar, to learn this stuff. She says they're lucky if they have one course in nutrition. So I think to make physicians, anyone in the medical field that wants to be a healer, I think it's so vital if we start putting more nutrition and toxicology courses in their training to make them more preventative healers and proactive healers versus reactive. I
Yeah.
think that would do so much for humanity.
Yeah, I think this is so important because look at what you just said. And so that's what there is a need for. There is a need for doctors who want to be healers and who really want to get the nutritional piece and who want to get the toxicology piece. Because my dad, I cannot go to him right now and tell him, because I'm about to ask you a question and you're going to be able
Okay.
to give me back an answer. And no matter what you tell me, it's not going to matter because
Right.
I'm not going to be able to go to him and tell him that because he's not going to listen to me, because his
Right.
authority lies in the doctor and his authority lies in the system, and that's who he's going to listen to. So he's not going to listen to anything I have to say. But my parents recently lost their home in a house fire. And uh for a month long, 3 weeks long or whatever, there was a basement in the house upstairs was already completely
Hmm.
burned down, but the basement there were recoverable items. So what did Arnie do? he would go in every single day into that house, and the where the house fire was, and he would, yeah, he had on one of those little tiny little masks or whatever, but he would be
Mm.
breathing in
Oh
all
boy.
of that old fire and all that whatever toxicity that I'm sure you're going to talk about here in a minute. He would breathe
Right.
that in for 3 weeks on end, going up and down the stairs, carrying items. Then on the last day, he ended in the hospital with a heart attack.
Mm.
Okay. So, but this is what happened. Um, so he's not going to listen to what I say about the toxicity, about that.
He would probably listen to Dr. Staninger, who's the one who taught me. She's a PhD toxicologist, on how, even though we can't see in the air, the soot and everything else, that, we're not seeing that coming into our lungs, but it is. I mean, basically there's fumes from burnt paint, there's fumes from the burnt wood that's not natural wood, that's been treated. All of that, you can't see any of that. And she would say, he would have benefited. Well, even now, he still would benefit from it. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, gentle infrared sauna therapy. We were doing that as well. Very gentle heat, 128 degrees for 15, 20 minutes, optimally 5 times a week, but even 2 to 3 times a week. Taking things like activated charcoal and glutathione to just gently get those out of the body. And, in 6 months to a year, I mean, his heart will be actually quite healed. Even now, he could be, not today or tomorrow or whatever, but he could still reverse the damage. And I always say, because people think, oh, he's 90,
Yeah.
it's too late, blah, blah. It's never too late to heal. It's never too late.
So I'm so glad we're talking about this. I'm going to definitely play this back for myself and take some notes and uh, look up some of the items that you talked about and seeing what I can do. Isn't that what we do as kids? We always want
Yep.
our parents, our children to do well, and not just our parents, our children, but the world, our brothers and sisters that are all part of this planet that are here to make the changes that we're going to make and not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past by educating ourselves to what's really important. You've gone through a horrible thing with your toxicology, toxicity experience, and which got you to this place now, because you had terrible headaches, tension headaches and cold headaches, and there were lots of things that you were experiencing, and you're saying for us to trust our gut.
Right. Yeah. What I was giving an example of in my notes to you, Cornelia, was some people, and you're very astute, you're very intuitive. There's some people, they're so disconnected with their body that when they have a cold, and you have a headache from a cold, they can't tell the difference between a tension headache or a headache from a cold or a headache from something they ate or something toxic. And I'm very astute. I mean, I can tell the difference because, I'm always paying attention to those different events. How did I feel when I had the flu? And then you have that headache that you have when you're not feeling well, right? There's some people, they just don't, it's all the same to them because they are not paying attention to how their body reacts under different circumstances, and they don't have that memory to think about that. But what's interesting about my toxicity experience, now this was intentional poisoning, okay? And I want to encourage people out there who are going to start to worry about, every little thing out there. There's about in the whole world, only 4 to 5% of people who are those, what do you want to call them? They're the type of people that want to, take vengeance on people or do something that's very harmful to somebody. So, thankfully there's not tons of people out there like that. But I met somebody like that. That was, through my ex-husband's family. This is a former daughter-in-law who had a long criminal history, even just as a teenager, as a young girl. It appears that, just studying her and talking to her dad, who unfortunately was also, involved in what she was doing. It's very interesting how some people seem to be born that way. Some people talk about how it's not even the environment. I mean, they may have had loving parents, but they just have something that makes them want to do bad things. And she's that type of person, unfortunately. So my intuition and also my training in psychology makes me very astute to not only observing
Christine,
what happens to us. I'm sorry.
There was a delay.
Yes?
There was a
Oh,
delay.
there was a delay.
There was a delay.
Okay.
So the last thing I heard you say was, makes me very astute. And then after that, I didn't hear anything else.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So we're back. You've got the sound then again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, so basically, and this is what that I try to teach people. I'm sure Cornelia, we talk about this too, is people being more aware of what's going on around them. Okay. So just because I don't know how much, I'm not even keeping too much track of our time, but in the situation that I was in, which is intentional poisoning. Okay. It's not accidental or environmental. It's intentional. It's paying attention to what's going on around you with that individual or circumstance. And in this case, this is someone through an ex's family who had that kind of criminal background, all right, who is the type of person who just mentally is very vengeful, for any particular reason, right? And so I pay attention to that person's behavior at social events. And it just kind of came to me after a while, especially when they were disrupting the family emotionally and mentally with, lies or anything else that they were doing, which was, again, that's a very toxic thing as well, right? That they like to bring gifts of food. And seeing how more vengeful they were getting and some other issues that had occurred that were pretty upsetting, I mentioned to my now ex, I said, don't eat what she brings you. And he was like very not astute at all. And he's like, oh, why? And I said, I, have this feeling because of what she does, to us otherwise, with other things. I don't think that, she's probably going to start, if she's not already, I said, poisoning the food. Oh, she wouldn't do that. I said, well, knowing her background, yes, I believe she would. Look what she's doing to try to, get people to be against each other and everything. And I started noticing the symptoms at a Christmas party where we had first met her, and something crazy that happened at 2:00 in the morning, from eating something that she brought and it causing uncontrollable bloody diarrhea that couldn't be stopped. And and having to then rush to the hospital and address that. And so I paid attention to these different events over time, but then said, okay, we need to be cognizant of what this woman is bringing. And sure enough, another year and a half later, because I couldn't stop my ex from, seeing her, she was on to me. She was upset that I was pretty cognizant of what she was doing. And I kept throwing out the food and all of that. But he started having those symptoms again. And I was concerned because I did attend a couple of parties with her. So I was curious and said, okay, well, we need to address this, because obviously if there is now toxins in us from stuff that she's put in the food or drink, things that at a party that she would throw, then I need to figure this out, because I need to know, how do I stop this? How do we reverse this now, what the doctors thought was ulcerated colitis, which I said, no, this is not natural. And they're like, oh, well, this can happen over time. And, there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, we've got an issue here and I need to figure it out. So I just kept researching it. I kept looking up what kind of elements can cause inflammation of the bowels. What can cause that? What can cause the nerve issues? What can cause the headaches, the dizziness, the brain fog, all of that was starting to happen. And I found the element thallium online, and arsenic and barium and all these other heavy metal elements that if you just do small amounts over time, they can build up in the body, because heavy metals don't really leave the body unless you do something to help them along. It's not like food toxicity where you can just kind of just clear your body out by fasting or doing something like that. Heavy metals do need help. And so I then started saying, okay, the doctor's tests were not working. The regular tests that you get at the doctor's office for urine and blood through, say, Quest Diagnostics or LabCorp weren't showing anything. And I said, okay, since this is a crime, so we know this is a crime, I'm going to use forensics because I want to have something that's admissible in court. And when I sent our hair to a very special lab, it's out of Colorado, called the Carlson Company Labs, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was like, it was incredible what a forensic test reveals. And that's when I figured out that the use of nanotechnology, which now is in every mRNA shot, it's in food packaging. We hear about nano used in so many different capacities these days, was blocking regular doctor tests from seeing those elements. And I said, Eureka, I figured out what's going on here and how this can fool doctors if the doctors don't have the proper tools. And again, we were just talking about it, they're not trained really. If they have one course or two courses in toxins and poisons in their studies, that's a lot. And they just don't know or know very little about chronic toxicity and how it can cause these health issues, and on a very slow basis. I mean, this could take years. It could be immediate, or it could take years for that to build up and start causing the liver damage, the kidney damage, the nerve issues, the inflammation in the colon and stuff like that. It's incredible the amount of health issues that are caused by toxins such as heavy metals and chemicals. And
how can we take forensic tests? How can we take these toxic tests to find out how toxic we are?
Now, the Carlson company that I used was expensive because they do work with the police. Then my toxicologist, Dr. Stanninger, was working with Direct Labs, which I'd mentioned earlier. So directlabs.com is a more affordable way to do those forensic tests, whether it's for heavy metals or whether it's for chemicals. And see, because what's interesting about forensics is it uses two types of technology. Guess I don't know, make people crazy here with terminology, but it uses a technology that bypasses nano and burns away anything that could be coating the elements so that you can see everything. And they have like these very affordable test kits that you can have mailed to you. You can mail it back. We have urine tests, we have hair tests. One of the reasons why I tell people, especially if they want to do this for COVID shot testing, and I've already had a couple people do this who had COVID shots and were upset about their health issues, and we've revealed the whole enchilada of all the metals that are in them that match our testing from before on that. And so they have that proof. If they do say to themselves, well, I don't want to detoxify unless I see it, now we have that way to do it affordably. So directlabs.com has those that people can get those results. And the reason for hair is that if it's been a while since you had that shot, or it's been some time since that event of that, say that wildfire, or like with your dad, who breathed in who knows how much chemical toxins he was breathing in when he went in back and forth into their home. A hair test is optimal because everything comes out through our pores. Mm-hmm. So hair is a fantastic measurement of the amount of toxins that are in our body, especially if it's been a period of time since that event occurred. So I always encourage people to do the hair test because it's a great indicator of what's in our body.
Good. I think you've given us a lot of things to look at and think about as far as toxicity testing, and even looking at where we stand with certain things. Do you still give your power away to an outside medical source, or what does your internal guidance system say? And where in your life do you want to get to the root of some issues? And, you also talked about the lady that healed from stage 1 breast cancer because she didn't have any vitamin D in her body. I'm so bad. I'm so good at a lot of things, but I'm so bad. I'm going to tell you, I'm so bad at taking supplements. So I'm curious I need to get some testing done myself to see where I stand, because I just have rejected any type of, I'm just not good at taking supplements. And so I don't take medications, I don't take supplements, and I'm sure I could be missing something.
Sure. Yeah, foods don't. What's interesting, and don't want to expound too much on it because we could talk forever about so many different things. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the amount of people in the world, if people think about it, in terms of our farmland, there's so many missing nutrients now in the soil because lots of farmland isn't let to rest and build up those nutrients in the soil over and over again. So a lot of food is missing a lot of nutrients that supplements really replace. So yeah, supplements are very important. And Cornelia, you're not the first person to tell me that they don't take supplements on a regular basis. It's got you. I've been ingrained in it since I was a kid. So to me, it's pretty natural. It's almost like eating.
Yeah.
To do my 10 supplements every day. I know people look at me like I'm nuts, but I'm also an athlete. So I take like extra joint support supplements. I'm low on iron and potassium naturally in my body, so I take extra of that. So so I would say if you want to, make those changes, do some testing and say, okay, well, I probably should take that little extra, calcium and vitamin D and all of that to stay healthier.
Well,
Absolutely.
you've definitely inspired me today. I also want to do some toxicity testing as well. Um, so couple more things I want to say. I know that you had prepared like a new book for this particular audience that is listening to this. And Christina, if I could ask you to, um, after this show is over, go over to our YouTube channel, Cornelia Stephanie YouTube, and right underneath the comments there, if you wouldn't mind dropping the link from that book that you're offering the audience today, if you
Mhm.
wouldn't mind putting that there, and even some of your other information as well, like where people can look you up, follow you, or contact you for further information. Maybe
Sure.
even people that are listening to this podcast that also have podcasts and want you to come on their show as well. I would love it if you would come back, like let's just say, every 2 or 3 months, and we update. Uh, you know, we have,
Sure.
we have an ongoing conversation. Maybe the next topic it's going to be in the subject line. It's going to be your own doctor, and here's why. That kind of
Mhm.
thing. We can just keep this conversation going because there's so much to say.
There is so much information, Cornelia, that comes out almost on a daily basis that most people don't do the connection
Yeah.
to health and wellness. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and just now, I have a really close friend in my close circle here. Bless her soul. She's a woman and she is deaf. And so she's getting ready tomorrow to go in for the removal of her thyroid, which,
Mm.
on a spiritual level, I can see that it makes sense, because if we're emotionally suppressing energy over the course of our years and years and years, and we're emotionally suppressing, and all the places where she couldn't speak her truth, the throat being the truth, putting it out there, being listened to, being heard. Anyway, the thyroid's being removed because there's tumors growing. But that's not the only thing. The other thing that's happening is she's a smoker, and she's been smoking, for 40 years or whatever, for a long
Mm.
time. So I asked her, what is her plan about the smoking piece? And we write to each other because I don't know how to speak sign language, so it's either text or we're sitting with our pads and writing back and forth. So I asked her, what are her plans as far as the smoking? And she said she's going to use this time now to finally let it go. And I said, great,
Mm.
because I was encouraging her when back in the day when I quit, I used the patch initially to help
Mhm.
me just for the first few weeks to get off of that nicotine thing. And
Mhm.
so I
Right.
shared that with her. So I'm asking you, what else can she take? Is it charcoal that you recommend to pull some of those toxins out?
The activated charcoal and I'll in the like you said in the description in the comments section, I'll actually include the link. I have a link to on my one of my websites, thepaladina.com, where I list those safe detox supplements that were recommended by Dr. Staninger. Activated charcoal is great to be taken. It can be taken at bedtime, away from other supplements or medication or anything like that, and that will help her tremendously in and also just even the glutathione, because that's very gentle to the body to help pull out those extra toxins that are built up from the smoking over the years. That will start to, especially, it's interesting. Glutathione is very good for the lungs in terms of making, when you're gently pulling those toxins out of the lungs, breathing easier. Many people that had COVID and they got on the glutathione and boosting also the vitamin D levels, they started breathing easier within an hour. So that will help her tremendously. Just
Good.
that.
I'm actually gonna just purchase those two things, and it's gonna go
Mhm.
into her wellness care.
Yeah, I'll give you the affiliate link that we have for Amazon. We found and researched the affordable brands that are non-GMO, third party, but very affordable. I'll include that
Oh,
link for you.
yeah, please, or you can just email that to me, or you can also put it in YouTube underneath that in case anyone else is listening because they're now inspired to do the same thing so that
Hmm.
they have the links. But, send me the links because I'm putting together a wellness package for her so that I
Okay,
can be of support to her as she goes through this big phase in her life.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's you're such a blessing, Cornelia, to so many people.
Oh, and you. And thank you so much, Christine, for coming on and for, sharing this wisdom, for being on the world stage and going on all these shows and doing all this research and sharing your story. And like I said, I want to have you come back in a few months. You'll email me during a
Sure,
time and we'll set another podcast and we'll just carry on the conversation.
absolutely, sounds great.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. We're going to see you again next time on the Cornelia Stephanie Show. Take good care, everyone. Bye. Bye, Christine. Thank you so much.
Take care.